All right, so picture this. It's a Sunday afternoon in Kolkata. The air is just thick with the amazing smell of luchis and cholar dal. We're all there, the whole family, like 15 of us, crammed around my grandmother's dining table. And my son, Aryan, who's 3, well, he's supposed to be sitting nicely. Yeah, right. That felt about as likely as the sky suddenly turning green.
So, Arian, he's just everywhere at once. I mean, he's squirming, he's sliding down his chair to hang upside down, he's tapping his feet, standing up, then just crashing back down into his seat. And I'm doing the whole parent hiss, Arian, sit properly. But it's totally useless. And then I hear it from across the table, my mother-in-law just shaking her head. And those words she said, they just landed like a stone in my stomach. Oh, the shame was just instant and so familiar. So, of course, I immediately start scanning the table, right? And what do I see? All the other kids, they seem to be sitting just fine. So, why not mine? Why can't he just sit still for 30 minutes? Just 30 minutes. I started asking myself, is he doing this on purpose? To get at me? Honestly, I felt like a total failure. I was completely convinced that every single squirm and wiggle was just a big, bright sign pointing to my bad parenting. But this is where everything changed for me. I was totally stuck in this awful cycle of frustration and shame, and then I stumbled onto this idea, this paradox really, that completely flipped my understanding of what was going on with Aryan. It was this one simple question. What if all that wiggling wasn't misbehavior? What if it wasn't a choice at all, but a biological need? Okay, so think about it like this. For us as adults, movement is pretty straightforward, right? It's just about getting from point A to point B. We walk to the car, we go for a run to exercise. But for a little kid, especially one under 7, movement has this massive hidden purpose. It's not just about getting somewhere, it's literally how they build their brain.
So let's get a little bit nerdy for a second, but I promise it's worth it. Deep inside our inner ear, we all have something called the vestibular system. You can think of it like your body's internal gyroscope. It's what handles your balance and your sense of where you are in space. So every single time a kid spins around, jumps on the bed, rolls on the floor, or hangs upside down from the sofa, they're not just messing around. They are actively sending critical information to the system, literally building the brain pathways they need for coordination.
And that's not all. There's another key player here, the proprioceptive system. Now, this is the sense that tells your brain where all your body parts are without you even having to look. You know how you can touch your nose with your eyes closed? That's proprioception. And for kids, it gets developed by, you guessed it, pushing, pulling, and yeah, even crashing into stuff. This is what teaches a kid how much pressure to use when they're writing with a pencil, or how to give a gentle hug instead of a bone-crushing one. So all that so-called rough play, it's actually incredibly precise, important work. And here is the magic number, 7. This whole intense period of brain building through movement, it mostly happens between birth and age 7. This is the critical window. A child has to move, and I mean move a lot, to get these systems wired up correctly. And here's the thing, you can't teach it to them in a classroom. You can't explain it. Their bodies just have to do it. This next part was the line that finally made everything click into place for me. An occupational therapist said it to me, and I will never, ever forget it. She said, forcing a child like Aryan to be still is like asking a thirsty person not to drink. Wow. It wasn't about him choosing to defy me. His little nervous system was just thirsty for all that sensory input. And the more I tried to clamp down and force him to be still, the more that need just built up and up and up until, poof, it just had to burst out. So what do you do then? Well, you don't fight the thirst. You give them water. And the solution, the water in this case, was something called a sensory diet. And no, it has nothing to do with food. It's all about proactively feeding my son's nervous system the intense movement it was craving all day long. The goal was to stop waiting for him to get, sensory hangry at the worst possible time, like the dinner table. So I basically came up with a new playbook. It was super simple, but honestly, it was a total game changer. The big shift was moving from reacting to his wiggles to planning for them. The plan had 3 main parts. Step 1, front load with play. Fill his sensory tank before he needed to be still. Step 2, plan for little movement breaks. And step 3, offer him acceptable ways to wiggle that weren't so disruptive. So, what on earth are acceptable wiggles? Well, here are some of the things that worked for us.
I'd bring a little fidget toy that he could squeeze under the table, out of sight. We got one of those wobble cushions for his chair, which was amazing. And get this, even giving him crunchy snacks like carrots or apple slices helped, because that chewing provides really deep pressure to the jaw, which is super calming for the nervous system. See? It wasn't about stopping the movement. It was all about finding a better channel for it.
And this first step, front-loading, this became our absolute golden rule. Before any situation that required him to be still for a while, a long car ride, trip to the temple, and especially that big Sunday lunch, we would front-load. We'd go to the park an hour beforehand, and I just let him go nuts, run, climb, swing, spin, as much as he wanted. The idea was to fill up his sensory tank to the brim, so he'd have some reserves of calm he could draw on later.
And the result? Oh my gosh. Our family lunches were completely transformed. They went from being this stressful battlefield of wills to, well, a breather, a place where I could actually breathe. Now, was he perfectly still like a little statue? Of course not, but he wasn't disruptive anymore. He could actually sit for longer, he could eat his food, and I could finally relax. Those little movement breaks we take weren't a sign of me failing anymore. They were part of our winning strategy.
This really became my mantra. You know, the biggest shift wasn't actually in my son's behavior. The shift was in my perspective. He hadn't really changed. I had. I stopped seeing all his movement as this bad behavior that I needed to crush and started seeing it for what it was, a fundamental, biological need that I needed to help him meet. And once I made that one change, everything else just started to fall into place.
So I want to leave you with the question that I now ask myself all the time, anytime I see a kid struggling. It is so easy, so automatic to think, ugh, this child is giving me such a hard time. But what if we just flipped the script and asked this instead? It really changes how you see them, and it completely changes how you can help. And that one tiny shift in thinking, well, it can make all the difference in the world.